right,
let's get
let's
it
get it
going.
going.
You
All
ready?
right, thank
All
you
right.
everybody for joining us on this beautiful Sunday afternoon for the Black Abstract Artists Black History Month Artist Talk. We have our beautifully spirited, ultra talented Danny Simmons in the house of Rush Arts Philly. Uh, just a brief little talk about how I even linked up with Danny. People ask me all the time, well, how do you know Danny? How do you know Danny? I was a participant in the Bombay Sapphire Artisan Series in 2017. I really wanted to meet Danny, but he didn't end up coming to the event. So I kind of let it go. So I'm on the group one afternoon, and Danny wanted to post something. I don't even think he knows this story. And
I
I'm like,
don't.
oh my God. I said, Danny Simmons is in this group. How did he get here? Should I talk to him? So I went into like groupie mode and I'm like, chill out. That's really not your style. Just relax. So I started flooding the group with artwork to get him to talk to me about my work. And clearly it worked. So him and Noah had an artist call for I Can Do That show in Philly. And there was a discrepancy on the artist call. So I had a reason now to talk to Danny. So I'm like, okay, let's talk about the discrepancy and then let him know that you were one of the Bombay winners. So that's what I did. And he loved the work. And I went to Philly and I'm like, yeah, I'll do a show. We'll be distant Facebook friends and I'll never see Danny again. Lo and behold, Danny jumps in my inbox and gives me just the biggest well wishes. Like he says to me, quote unquote, your career is only going to catapult from here. And he didn't lie. Things have continued to go up and up. So he's got the Midas touch in addition to being an awesome artist. So that will lead me to this. Danny, how did you even decide to even get into abstract painting?
How did I get into abstract painting? I started out, let me start out how I got into being an artist. My mother was a amateur tabletop artist. And so when I was a kid, she used to bring home art supplies and teach me how to paint and stuff like that. And over the years, I painted a little bit, and then I stopped. And I started writing because I do have sort of a dual career as a writer and a painter. And one day, I couldn't write anything. I was stuck, traditional what they call writer's block.
Right.
And I pulled out my paint set and tried to unblock, and it worked. And then I thought, I wasn't getting too much traction on the manuscripts. I had sent in a couple of novels that I had written. I said, maybe it'll be easier to get people to look at stuff than to read stuff. And so I started painting more and more, and really fell in love with the movement, the tactileness of it. And so for years, I concentrated more on painting. And then I guess in the mid 2000s or so, like 2008, 2009, I started writing again more often. And so I do both of them in tandem. But really, painting moves me more spiritually because it's the physicality of and I make my own paint. So it's like, I make it out of powder pigment and oil. And so it's sort of like I'm creating from the very beginning of something.
Okay.
It feels like I'm creating a spell, actually. And I feel about,
I know it. I know it.
Like bubbles boiling, I'm making paint and I'm doing this and doing that. And I started out really more, since I went to school for social work, I started out really more emulating the European masters because I didn't really know that much about art. And I started realizing that they were just appropriating art from Africa. And so, I started going to the source, and then, my paintings were reflecting my love of African art. But then when I realized the spirituality, I started trying to capture, instead of the image, the spirit of what was going on with the sculptures and with the body painting. And the thing that got me fully, and I couldn't figure out how to get to fully abstract art. It was a journey for me. And I looked at body painting and the dot, and the dot became, and you see dots
Oh,
in
wow.
all of my stuff. The dot became my point of spiritual reference, and I could trail things with dot. I could create things with dot, and it made me feel like I was capturing spirit with that dot.
That's
And
heavy.
then I looked across the world, and that dot appeared in Aboriginal painting, and it appeared in every Aboriginal culture across the world. That dotting was a means of expression. And so that's how I got into abstraction, through the dot. And then I looked at
Right.
textiles and stuff like that. And so, that's
So
how
when
I
we
got
were
there.
off camera, you mentioned that Norman Lewis was one of your influences.
Oh
What
yeah.
exactly about, was it his ideology or was it the technique? What was it about
It was it,
Norman
it was
Lewis?
it was the technique. Looking at, one of the things I saw painting as a journey. And
Hmm.
when I was looking at Norman Lewis's stuff, it seemed like everything in the movement and the mark making were journeys
Yeah.
along paths, especially in the paintings that I was looking at. And I started seeing these journeys and linking things together to get things there. And so he started. And then I met his daughter,
Oh,
who
wow.
became Taryn Fuller, who became one of my mentors. And so I started learning more and more about Norman. And then we had a big show, Danny Simmons and Norman Lewis,
Oh, I love it.
at the museum in Macon, Georgia, in Macon. And Taryn said to me, she said, your work embodies the spirit of what my father was doing.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that was just such a big endorsement.
Hmm.
And I collected a few Norman Lewis before he became like way too much money to buy. And I just picked up his spirit more than his technique, and the journey that his paintings took me on.
That's funny that you mentioned that. I went to a Charles McGee tribute exhibition yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's a big time muralist here in the city. He passed away recently. He was like 90 some years old. And one of the other artists said the same thing, like he'd never met him, but he just embodied his work and his ideology, that he felt that he was like reincarnating Mr. McGee, and was
Mm-hmm.
able to reach inside of himself to make it his own technique. So that's very
Right.
interesting. Very interesting. Al, did you have any questions about the technique, or did Danny cover it?
Yeah, you kind of covered it. But I had one question. It's sort of more like a marketing thing, in a sense. I was just wondering if you think, in your opinion, is Black abstract art on the rise or the decline? And
Uh,
compared to figuration, for instance.
Um, I think Black art in general is on the rise. I think, I don't know if it's a trend and it will continue this way, but Black artists from here and across the diaspora are in the art world's eye right now. And
Mm-hmm.
so, along with that, I think Black abstraction comes with it. But we're really starting to see Black abstraction get the top dollar at auctions. We're starting to see, Rashid Johnson and all these other Black abstractionists getting attention. So I
Yeah.
think it's all part of Black people making strides into the art world. I think, as always, because human beings really relate to things that they see, I think that figuration probably is more prominent because people
Hmm.
relate to figuration. You have to go a step further to dig into abstract art to find out what you like about it. When you look at a face or a body, you relate to it because of your physicality or a landscape. These are things you see. So you have to go a step further. And those people who want to investigate start understanding that abstract art is expressing some of the same things they would have found in figurative art, only on another level. So
Mm-hmm.
I think, we're coming along as abstractionists, but I still think, most people will gravitate towards figuration before they would gravitate towards abstraction.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Rush Arts a little bit. Rush Arts is a fantastic place. I've witnessed the things that they do there, especially for the community. Let's talk about how Rush even began. Once when
Um,
you were over in New York, let's talk about from New York to Philly.
well, it started out, I started out giving art shows, in different places. way back in the early 90s and the late 80s, there were very few venues for Black artists to show.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, damn. And I felt like I could do something about it. So I started putting together shows. And the first shows I did at, before Russell even had Def Jam, he had an office called Rush Productions.
Yeah.
And so I did my first art show
Yeah.
at Rush Productions in his office there. And then from there, then I did the Def Jam art shows. And that wasn't enough for me, just finding places. I needed a place of my own. Mm-hmm. So I lived in a brownstone in Bed-Stuy, and I gutted out my whole first ground floor, reconfigured my house, and turned the ground floor of my house into the Sanctuary Art Gallery. Wow. And so, I mean, that was my first art gallery, was in my house. And I ran that for a couple of years. And two, I met some guys who had a gallery, who had just taken over his father's gallery. His father moved to Soho. He had a gallery in the neighborhood in Manhattan called Tribeca. And mm-hmm. so I took over with them that gallery, and we called it Annex. And we started giving art shows. We had like the biggest art shows ever, because the celebrity name, I played on both of my brother's celebrity to bring people to the show. And so we would do things like we would do things like, I was very intentional about using their celebrity to push Black art. Mm-hmm. And Russell and Run, but mostly Russell would help me, because he would invite, when I had openings there, all these celebrities, and they would all come down, and we'd have the models and everybody came. And one month we had a show called, every weekend we had a show called Sankofa, where each weekend, first we had art, and the art always stayed up, but then we had poetry, and this was the beginnings of Def Poetry, and we had fashion. Fat Farm had just opened, and all the other so we had a fashion show, and we had Black film. So every weekend we had thousands, I mean, literally thousands of people coming there. And mostly guys came to meet girls, and girls came to meet guys, but they did it around art. Yeah. And so it was a big party. And then from there, I was like, they lost the place, because we didn't ever made a dime. We made a lot of culture, and we couldn't pay the rent. And I said, we got to do something. And I started a nonprofit and called it Rush Philanthropic Arts Foundation. Mm-hmm. And I went to Reverend Run and Run DMC at the time and asked them to perform at a fundraiser. And we also got Eartha Kitt. And
oh wow,
it was wild. Eartha Kitt
I'm
on the
sure
stage.
That was a wild event with Eartha in the house.
Yeah, and it was at a place called the Puck Building, where they did the Black Fine Art Show back in the days.
Very jealous of the Puck Building. Very jealous.
Yeah, so we did that, and we raised $250,000. And wow. So I hired an executive director. I rented out a place, and then we gave the rest of the money to places that work with kids, because that was one of the things Russell insisted on. We got to do something for kids. Mm-hmm. When we get this money, we're going to give some of it. So we gave money to the studio, not the studio museum, the studio and the school, and about 5 different charity social organizations. And we kept doing that year after year. And finally I said, well, you know what? I'm looking at Chelsea, and we got this art gallery in Chelsea, and none of the Black people or the Hispanic people who lived across 10th Avenue in the projects ever came to the galleries. You know, and so I went across to the projects, and there's a social organization that I still work with over there called Hudson Guild. And I said, can you bring your kids over here, and we'll have some artists to talk to them. Yes. And from there, 28 years later, 25 years later, our children's program has been running. And so we launched many careers out of Rush Chelsea. But then I bought a loft building in Clinton Hill, around the corner from where Al lives. And we opened the Corridor Gallery. And we had shows there for community artists. It was open on Sunday afternoon. Our openings were Sunday, so the women could come with their grandchildren from church. And we wanted to get the community. It was a community gallery. And so what we're doing in Philly is a combination of what I did in Manhattan and what I did in Brooklyn, to bring the community in and bring artists in and have them really change the dynamic of how our community looks at art. You know, that it's something for them instead of something over there this is something right here, and our artists live down the block, and our artists live here, and this, that, and so, you know, the whole point of all of this is really to empower our community. I think art probably is the most powerful, one of the most powerful things we can do to make social change within our community, because it empowers people, and from there they can go do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. One good thing about it is the fact that you guys work with children. You know, somebody's got to carry the torch for artists. And I witnessed the kids actually attending the class there. And even during COVID, they set it up online and the classes were free.
Rush's class never cost anything. We actually set up a link, and we're still teaching kids in Jamaica, because COVID opened the Zoom, like we're doing now, opened this up to the world. And so we had kids from California, we had kids from Jamaica. And so we have a dedicated class in Jamaica, West Indies now that goes on every week. And we teach about 30 kids. Some Black men in Jamaica wanted to get this thing going. And one of them came to me, well, actually came to my wife, Kia, and asked to speak to me, and we put this all together. So it's been going well.
Nice. Chris, you have anything before I move on to NFTs?
Yeah, I actually, Danny, I did some editing, you know, do some editing for you. And I edited one of the training classes for Jamaica. And those kids were, I did the editing for that. And the kids were really excited, you know, about being in the class. And I saw all the outtakes, and it was just humorous, and they just loved their energy. And the trainers that you've got involved with the class, it was really positive thing to see.
There's nothing, I mean, to see a kid's face light up when they're doing art, you know, it empowers them. They're creating something out of nothing. It's like, out of myself, out of my imagination, here it is. And they can show off their friends and their family. And it's really just such a powerful thing for young people.
I was looking at the mural that Raphael was doing with the kids the other day over at Rush. That was fantastic. I mean, it's nothing like seeing kids light up about art, like seriously. NFTs. Where's Rush headed with NFTs at this time?
Snoop Dogg's son, Cordell, did a program, or did a deal with a company called Tezos. And the first grade, they gave Snoop Dogg's Cordell, I think, $1 million. And the first person he came to was us to implement an NFT program. But really, he came to us, and, you know, we're getting ready to start that. We've identified 3 artists that are going to start with this program. They granted us $50,000 to start, and so we're going to have a teacher, and it's not just about the NFTs, but it's about blockchain technology, which I admittedly don't know that much about, but I do know it's a way that you can track who buys your NFT, where the money goes, how it goes back to you, and how you can direct the money to different organizations and nonprofits. And so it's a tracking. From what I understand, blockchain technology keeps an eye on your creative endeavors through the NFTs. But I think it can do it with just regular art also. But like I said, I'm not the one that knows that much about it. So we have people who are going to be working with 3 emerging artists. Some of them a little more emerging than others. But, you know, we have Emo, who had a show at Rush, Emo MA. We have Dara Haskins, and we have Taj Posey.
Dara is out cold. Dara's out cold.
Yeah.
That show was awesome.
Oh, man. All 3 of them
show was tight.
All 3 of them had great shows. And I think they all would benefit from creating an NFT and watching how it translates into the world, and how they can direct the money of that to whatever they like through this blockchain technology.
I find it interesting in the sense that artists are not necessarily being left out of the evolvement of art, especially for the younger artists. It's an educational piece for sure, because I'm interested in, I know how to create them, but I don't know the backstory to them and how to sell them. So, you know, I think it's very interesting, especially for my generation, because my generation has one foot in and one foot still back with the old cash registers, you know. So it's like we got to move forward, but still retain the integrity of what we do as creatives. You know, I don't want to just exclusively become a digital artist. I'll leave that to Phoebe. But I just think it's a great move for the community. CVL, did you want to talk about the poetry real quick? Or
well, you know what? I found out something about Phoebe's work. It's not all digital. She paints on it. She does so many layers of things to create that image. Digital is just one part of it. Yeah. You know, when she explained her technique, I was blown away at the layers of things that she does for that final image to come out. And I was like, damn, girl, you be working. Her work is beautiful. It's like it's alive. It's really like it's alive.
It really does. It's like it's really moving. You know, it's really moving. So she'll be on, like I said, next month. So for some real in-depth talks about her technique. March is bananas, though. But I digress. Okay. So clearly you feel that the arts community is ultra important. In what sense do you feel that, I can't even really, because I know you do your part. How important is that reaching back and that giving back for you?
Well, you know, at 6 years old, I was out on the picket line protesting with my father, watching him get arrested, beaten by police. And every Saturday or after work, he would be out there in the civil rights demonstrations. Later on, when I was a teenager, I was part of the Black Panther Party, local Black Panther chapter. I don't know how much I was part of it, but I was out on the street selling Black Panther newspapers and bringing the money back. I was arrested, beaten by police. I also was part of the people who started the Black Student Union in my school. And so political activism has always been very important to me. I grew up with it. Russell grew up with it. Run grew up with it. And so these things translated for me in how can I make some change in our community? And this, what I came up with is I saw how, you know, full disclosure, I saw how art changed my life. I was a 20-year drug user, even though I went to college, grad school, did all of this. Art was what saved me, my life, really, because I found something I could delve into and got away from drugs. And art basically was at the core of that. And so I started, if it can reform me after 20-some years of using. And then I became a drug counselor. And I saw how art is something that it's spiritual that can replace whatever you were doing with drugs. But I also saw when I put that gallery in Clinton Hill, how the neighborhood changed and how people changed towards art. And so, you know, and I joined all kinds of art boards. And in Brooklyn, I was on just about every board. So I knew art changes communities, it changes people's lives. I had one kid run up to one of our teachers and say, his grandmother had just died. His grandfather died 6 months before. And he grabbed one of our teachers and said, you know, today's one of my best days because today I got to do some art. Wow. And that really, you know, it helped this kid so much. And we've been doing this so long, I've seen kids come in, rush in first grade and go all the way through college and then come back when in New York, come back and become teachers and affect the next generation of kids. So, I mean, it's played a lot part. Also, you know, I look at the people who got their start at Rush or very early shows like Mickaleen Thomas and Kende Wiley, Wageshi Mutu, and the list just goes on and on and on. Derek Adams ran the gallery for a while. These are all artists that are on the national stage who are creating art that makes statements about our people. You know, these artists are conscious of who we are, what we're about, and their art reflects that, and it goes out into the world to millions of people, these positive messages through the arts. And so, you know, I can see the impact Rush has made over the years. So, you know, I can't help but go with it. I don't know if it makes the same kind of impact as direct protest, but it sure changes a lot of people's lives.
Indeed. It changed mine. Changed mine for sure. Yeah. My perception most definitely changed, switched gears. Me and my buddy James Chisholm, RIP. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions they want to throw out at Danny? Unmute Chris. Can we unmute Rob?
Danny, I don't know if you remember me.
I do.
I came to your spot back in the day with James Sepio.
Sepio, oh my God. I haven't heard that name in a long time.
And I had the opportunity to hang out with you and party, but your crib was so full of life with the art and the individuals. I never got the chance to intimately speak to you or even listen to you. And so for me today, I'm speaking to you from Italy.
Oh wow!
And I'm overwhelmed. I'm literally even emotional because I've had the chance to journey with Al Johnson, who's here, and we've done a lot of venues together, and so I really feel your spirit and what you're saying, and for you to come out and openly discuss your life unapologetically. And I can relate to your journey because I had a drug problem also. And again, I can piggyback on what you say on how art has saved lives, because it's helped me to understand and fulfill my goals to my creator. Having been in high school and collegiate All-American national, former national champion on both levels, high school and collegiate, and then to drop off the bottom and then to refine myself through art. I've had an amazing journey, and just to hear you speak today is for me, as you can hear, I'm emotional. I'm very happy. Thank you for
thank you
sharing with me and letting me know that as an educator, because I taught school and I taught in the public schools for 35 years as an art teacher and a core curriculum teacher. I just relate to everything that you just said, and knowing where your journey is going. And you know, I believe that we have parallel journeys, and all of us here are in this journey together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother.
Good for that, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I had somebody else said they had a question. Chris, did you have anything else for Danny?
I had one question for Danny. So, Danny, you've done so many things: activism, spoken word, your art. I've seen, your fashion. I've seen your artwork on clothing.
Danny pants.
Yeah, they were dope. So, hey, if you were writing your wiki page, what would the first paragraph say about Danny Simmons? What would you write? What would you want people to know?
That, basically this is in a never-ending journey of learning and experimenting and finding your way, that nothing is ever set, that is all, and life is fluid and in motion, and you have to learn how to ride this wave and take what you can from what you're getting, what's presented before you. One of the things that I've always thought of when you're trying to reach something, that whenever you're moving forward, there are things that you can take to push you along your direction. You may not get there, but you'll get somewhere. And so I think that the greatest thing that you can do is be fluid and be aware of what's going on, so you can use what's available to advance whatever you're trying to do.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
I hear you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do have somebody that wanted to say something to you, Danny. I guess this is your
I
life
owe nobody
today.
no money, so I don't.
No, you know this cat.
Oh, Al Johnson.
Yeah.
I went to school with my baby brother Russell. I've known Al for a very, very,
long time.
I
I miss my kids over there at Rush, man.
Man, all you gotta do is jump in the car and come from Allentown and come visit us.
That's
you don't
it.
come down and visit no more.
He's big time now, Danny. He doesn't have time.
I know he's always busy. His art is amazing.
Thank you, brother. I just got an extension on my program at the Oculus Center at the World Trade. So, but I definitely love to come down and come back and hang out with my crew, my Philly crew, as I call it. But Danny, I just want to say thank you for all the things that you bring to the table, man, with regards to the arts, uplifting our people in the arts, maintaining and just keeping that flow, earthly bound, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's all, how do you say, it's all natural, brother. And you carry it through very well, brother.
I just be me, man. Do what I do. I ain't trying to do nothing in particular, but just express myself truthfully and try to do no harm. Basically, I try to do some good.
Well, you were super cool. That I know. When I walked into Rush, it was just like all of my anxiety just went away because you're just so laid back and welcoming that it's like, wow, this is Danny freaking Simmons. Because we were talking earlier about how kids get to actually see real live living artists that are obtainable and reachable, so you aren't one of those artists that, oh, don't talk to me, girl. You're always willing to give advice and keep people on that straight path. So in addition to being a great artist, your level of motivation is just off the charts for me. And you've kept me going. And I am
still in my art collection.
I know, right? See, I wasn't even gonna say that.
Oh yeah, you in my art collection. And Al Johnson's in my collection.
Yeah.
And Phoebe's gonna be in my collection.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm gonna have to get CV. We have to get Chris Van Loan to piece.
Thank you.
So let me ask you a question. How many people did you collect from that show I curated?
I have no idea.
It was a handful.
Yeah,
it was at least 4 to 5.
Yeah, I don't know how much art I have in here, but even past that show, I'm still collecting people definitely from this group. I have Ashley Cole. I have a lot of people from the group because I believe that some of the best art that I've seen comes out of this Black abstract group. It's new, it's fresh,
that gave me the
and
chills.
It's an original thoughts. So you and Chris starting this group is an amazing resource for you to look at work, and when you look at other people's work, you can see your work reflected back, and it makes you better.
Yes,
it makes you better, and this group makes us all better because looking at other work and the discussions that go on about art. Even when you compliment somebody and they compliment you back, and this and that, it's all encouragement and all pushes all of us forward.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank you, Danny, for signing up and agreeing to do this with us.
Oh, man,
thank everybody for participating. And again, just a quick recap. Next month, we're going to be kicking off Women's History Month, and all the ladies are from the abstract group. So I'm locked and loaded and ready to go. So we'll have them at least, I'm trying to do at least 3 out of the month. We even have Ms. Lisa is going to be doing a mental health and how it impacts our work. So it's going to be an excellent series. So again, thank everybody. I thank everybody and happy creativity.
Having me on.
Absolutely.